The documentary on Malcolm X, Make It Plain, is one of the most comprehensive examinations of Malcolm's life, much of it based on Alex Haley's The Autobiography of Malcolm X. Released 25 years ago in 1994, it takes you on the journey of the evolution of an extraordinary revolutionary who started out as a quote-unquote petty criminal to become the most influential black nationalist of his generation, and then an internationalist whose life was tragically cut all too soon by agents of the U.S. government. Malcolm's life was influenced by previous movements fighting for self-determination, beginning with his parents, who were members of the Garveyite movement, and eventually when Malcolm joined the Nation of Islam, the first organization that Malcolm joined while in prison. And while our party doesn't share the same ideological views of these movements, like the Nation of Islam's patriarchal view on women, our party has consistently defended these movements whose very existence reflects self-determination against white chauvinism by those who proclaim to be socialists, and also the racist state repression in the form of COINTELPRO. In fact, Malcolm first drew the attention and ire of COINTELPRO, which was a creation of the FBI, while he was in prison in the 1950s, before he even joined the Nation of Islam. This repressive program, created by J. Edgar Hoover and sanctioned by every branch of the U.S. government, targeted any mass movements inside the U.S. that sought self-determination and national liberation from racism and capitalism. The FBI's tactics included demonizing through disinformation, frame-ups leading to incarceration, and killings and executions of political leaders of these movements. Malcolm X's militancy advocacy for the right to armed self-defense against state repression influenced many mass organizations, especially following his death, which included the Black Panther Party, the Deacons for Self-Defense, the Young Lords, the American Indian Movement, and more. These groups eventually were targeted by COINTELPRO, along with countless heroic leaders like Malcolm X, Dr. King, Assata Shakur, Fred Hampton, Sophia Bukhari, Mamiya, and Leonard Peltier. Malcolm X's political consciousness broadened from revolutionary black nationalism at home to anti-capitalist internationalism with other oppressed peoples based on his travels abroad, especially to Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. He once stated, and this is a quote from Malcolm X Speaks, "The same man that was colonizing our people in Kenya was colonizing our people in Congo. The same one in the Congo was colonizing our people in South Africa and in southern Rhodesia and in Burma and in India and in Afghanistan and in Pakistan. They realized all over the world where the dark man was being oppressed, he was being oppressed by the white man. Where the dark man was being exploited, he was being exploited by the white man," end of quote. Now, a week before his assassination, Malcolm raised this class perspective, quote, "It is incorrect to classify the revolt of the Negro as simply a racial conflict of black against white, or as a purely American problem. Rather, we are today seeing a global rebellion of the oppressed against the oppressor, the exploited against the exploited," end quote. And that quote alone really speaks volumes to what's happening today in terms of this global economic crisis. After leaving the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X initiated the short-lived Organization of Afro-American Unity in 1964 to help promote Pan-Africanism and brought in solidarity between black people at home and globally until his assassination on February 21st, 1965, by agents of the U.S. government. And just to expound on what Comrade Dolores talked about in terms of the co-opting of, revolutionary leaders or progressive leaders, bourgeois historians, who are the mouthpiece for the racist ruling class, have a tendency of co-opting the leaders of mass and political movements, and King and Malcolm are perfect examples. For instance, everyone wants to talk about Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech in 1963, but what Dolores raised in terms of really, you would really have to dig deep in terms of finding his Beyond Vietnam speech just a year before he was assassinated in 1967, where he linked the poverty at home with the immoral war in Vietnam. The U.S. government may have proclaimed its love and admiration for King publicly, but secretly they hated him because of the profound respect the black masses in the South and the North had for him. With Malcolm X, the U.S. government outright hated him because while King wanted to save capitalism, despite his criticism of war and racism, Malcolm X viewed capitalism and imperialism as the enemies of working and oppressed people worldwide. And I have to just reiterate that our party had the closest political affinity to Malcolm X. As the late Panther leader Fred Hampton, who was assassinated by Chicago police and other agents on December 4th, 1969, once stated, "You can kill a revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution," end quote. These prophetic words certainly apply to Malcolm X, whose inspiring words and legacy will live on in future generations to come. Thank you very much, comrades.